right, we are live. Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our special webinar today. I'm sure a lot of you are working from home, so thanks for making some time for us in this new dynamic that we're in. The webinar today is titled Why You Need Cyber Intelligence and How to Get There. We're going to be really looking at the importance of threat intelligence to help you track and stop malicious activity. It's as critical as ever. And we'll be discussing the importance of threat intelligence in the Security Operations Center and how you can go about making it actionable and contextual for your needs. And with that, we have two great guests with us today, AJ Nash, who is Director of Cyber Intelligence Strategy at Anomaly, and John Kitchen, who is Director of Sales Engineering for the Americas at Simplify. Both of these gentlemen are going to talk to you for several minutes, and at the end of this 30-minute session, we're going to have some time for some Q&A. So we really encourage you to get those questions in, and hopefully we can have a fun conversation at the end with some of your queries. And of course, when this is over, we will send you an on-demand version of it so you could rewatch it or share it with your colleagues. That said, I'm going to pass the digital baton over to AJ. AJ, take it away.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Appreciate it. As you mentioned, I'm AJ Nash. I'm the Director of Cyber Intelligence Strategy for Anomaly. Let's do a couple quick introductions of myself and John. We'll jump in this. So quick background on myself. I got about 18 years in the U.S. government space, half the time military, half the time contracting. Traditional intelligence background, counterterrorism, counterinsurgency, counter-trafficking and persons, chased war criminals for a while. About 5 years counting threats in cyberspace. I've been in the private sector about 5 years. My primary role now is either building intelligence programs or helping people build intelligence programs, and then a lot of public speaking and talking about it and writing and things like that. John, how about you?
Hey, thank you for joining everybody. Again, John Kitchen here at Simplify. Been in industry for a little over 20 years and done a lot of different things from sysadmin work to network work and evolving into security. More of a security evangelist these days, just trying to help people with their SOC operations and all the technologies that kind of encompass SOC and SOC operations. So again, thank you for joining us and looking forward to it.
All right, thanks, John. Looking forward to it as well. Let's jump in here. We don't have a ton of time, so we want to get through a lot of stuff. So first, I'm going to set the stage a little bit. Generally, a lot of my time is spent talking with CISOs and leaders in industry, and these are the questions that come up all the time. You know, who's after us and why? How are we going to get ready for that? You know, are we under attack and have they been successful? And if so, how are we going to respond? And in closed door settings where people don't have a lot of audiences, most often the answer they say is, I don't know. And this is what spawned the need for cyber intelligence. Is we need to have more information. We need to get ahead of adversaries. We can't be reactive to everything. So that started the whole trend of building intel programs. But that led to this problem of how much is too much. You know, we've gone from I don't have much data to work with to having massive amounts of data and information and some intelligence and having a hard time making sense of it all. And that leads me into the discussion of data, information, and intelligence. So this is actually from U.S. military doctrine. This is Joint Pub 2-0. And it talks about the difference between data, information, and intelligence. And one of the challenges we have in industry is organizations that are very data focused, but are very intelligence oriented in their messaging. That specifically comes a lot from vendors who sell what they call threat intelligence, but oftentimes it's just data. So a simple way to look at this is data would be a large list of IPs or URLs. Getting to information, informed data is that same list with scoring perhaps associated with it. And that's where most organizations are selling what they call intelligence, but really it's still just informed data or information. And then the last piece being intelligence. That's the finished intelligence piece, where we understand, say that list of IPs or URLs, we can associate it with specific adversaries, tactics, techniques, procedures, when that architecture was hostile, when it was safe, you know, really a finished full picture. Also, we're able to tie in strategic intelligence so we can understand big picture. And that's really, really hard to get to. And that's, I think, where most organizations are struggling today. So the reason we need intelligence is this timeline we look at. The proactive and reactive. So in the government space or in the military, we used to talk about being ahead of the curve, being left of boom. You know, boom is this little bomb we have here. And, you know, that's your bomb or your terrorist attack in kinetic world. And if you're right of the boom, you're dealing with, you know, battle damage assessments and and body parts and blood and guts, it's a really bad time. So obviously you want to stay to the left. And in cyber, we have similar challenges. We don't have as much carnage, hopefully, but on the cyber side of things, if we're to the right of the boom, it's 24-hour operations and it's incident response, and it's really, really challenging. So we want to stay left. And the only way to get left and be proactive is through intelligence. We have to be able to understand adversaries, understand the environment and the threat landscape, and what might be coming at us, not just what's already happened and living on the wire. And that opens up a lot of responsibilities for us in terms of our collection, in making sure that we understand exactly what we have access to and how we're going to process that information. So once we've decided we want to get left of boom, we want to get proactive, we talk about doing it systematically. This is the intelligence cycle. Again, this is straight out of government documentation. This has been prettied up a little bit, but there's a lot of versions with 5 boxes or 6 boxes. They're all essentially the same. And the key piece here, and where we see a lot of challenges again in the industry, is planning and direction. Where do we start? A lot of organizations have committed to doing intelligence, to building intelligence programs, but then we have a challenge where we fall down because we don't have a really solid direction and solid planning. We haven't sat down and discussed what our mission is, what our vision is going to be. We haven't put together an understanding of who our stakeholders are. We haven't collected the information we need to build intelligence requirements. And without that clarity, everything else really starts to be very difficult. Once we understand who we're providing intelligence for and why and what their needs are, then we can start discussing collection. How do we build a collection platform? How do we get the right vendors to give us the right material versus what we have inside of our own environments? How do we get the right tools and technologies to go with that so we can process that? And then analysis and production, how we can build out intelligence products and dissemination, which can be anything from written products or emails or texts that we're sending people, but that also includes the technical dissemination, whether it's machine to machine. And also we're going to talk, I know a little bit later, John's going to get into SOAR, right? How do we actually make use of the intelligence we're creating? How do we get to actions? So, this is a really important piece of this puzzle, again, is this planning and direction. Organizations generally are not doing this, or not doing it well, at least. There's a lot of room for improvement here, and that's where a lot of organizations can reach out to experts. There's vendors in the field who prioritize training as their only mission and their only job. There's other vendors, myself included, we have it as part of our built-in package, obviously. But it's really important for organizations who don't have a background in intelligence to reach out for support and help here. If we don't build the proper pieces up front, everything else gets very difficult. And most organizations have made the mistake of hiring really, really strong, technical, proficient cybersecurity experts who don't have a wealth of background in intelligence. And this is simply a different job. It's just not the same. You can hire a surgeon to work on your car. I wouldn't recommend it. They may be a great surgeon. And I'm not saying they can't do amazing things, but they're not built for that kind of work. And it's the same situation here. Hiring incident responders to do intelligence. We need to focus on that front end. So the planning and direction leads everything. All right. So real quick about the company itself. Obviously, I do represent Anomaly, so let's talk a little bit about how we fit into the equation. And this is our entire package, right? So the threat intelligence platform, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I think that's a core piece when you're building an intel program. And for full transparency, before arriving at Anomaly, like I said, I've built programs before. I've been a customer as well. And when building an intel program, I believe in starting with an intelligence platform. And the reason is because of that earlier slide I showed with the giant cloud of information coming at you. It's too much to be processed manually. If you want to have a really strong intelligence program, you're going to have a wide-ranging set of sources for collection. And you need to be able to make sense of that data, that information, and that intelligence very quickly. And with a solid platform, you can dedupe things that are coming in. You can get confidence ratings assigned through machine learning. It really raises your proficiency as an intelligence organization. Then we also have a product called Match. Match does a couple of really cool things tied to your SIM. First of all, it ties directly current intelligence to a SIM. So whereas right now we're dealing with tens of thousands of alerts coming in and trying to make sense of all of that, Match will tie those alerts back to vetted intelligence and help prioritize what we're doing. And then also on the retrospective search, when we do get compromised, because that's still going to happen, incident responders are really challenged when it comes to looking through and trying to do retrospective searches in the SIM. They're incredibly powerful machines, but they tend to fall down on 6-month retrospectives, for instance. We have a technology that solves that problem and can get us back to patient zero very, very quickly, within seconds to minutes. So that's a pretty cool tool. And then Lens is a natural language processing install for the browser. that brings intelligence really right to the desktop, allows us to very quickly, while we're reading all these open source pieces and struggling to make sense of what's out there, combines it directly back to what we already have in our intelligence platform and gives us instant context. And then you've got, intelligence marketplace and the integrator and the SDK. So we have the opportunity for people to build their own software development kits, to build their own integrations into our platform. We also have the largest marketplace in the world. We've got about 45 vendors in our marketplace right now and growing every day, and building relationships with incredible companies like Simplify on the store piece, obviously, and then professional services to help wrap it all up. As I mentioned, training, whether it's upskilling personnel or up-leveling programs, or just helping people make better use of the tools and technologies that we provide. It's really important to have partnerships with organizations that have that skill set that can help you move forward as you're building an Intel program. All right, and then the last piece for me, we'll talk about this for about a couple minutes here, and I'm gonna pass to John, is this is the full picture. This is what intelligence programs end up looking like start to finish. You can see a massive amount of collection at the top. I just gave some examples. I'm sure there's some logos I left out, but I try to be unbiased. But in different categories, anything from open source to some of the premium vendors, where you're talking about deep and dark web vendors, where you're talking about telemetry vendors, also malware specific, for instance, all sorts of technologies there. The ISACs, I think ISACs play a big role in collection and information sharing. We need to work more on sharing more information together, but they're very important. And of course, the government provides some really interesting pieces that we should be able to sign up for. But being able to work that, again, through a platform, as I mentioned, having a platform that allows us to make sense of all this massive amount of collection, and then tie that back to the SIM. I talked about anomaly matching where that goes, and then Simplify, obviously a SOAR platform, right? Being in a position where you can take that intelligence and put it into action. People often ask, I've got all this stuff, but what do I do with it? And the two outputs you see here are the output of your intelligence team, which is informing all sorts of organizations within a company, from the tactical and technical up through the operational and strategic levels, also working with organizations like physical security and insider threat. But then what happens in the now, that's Simplify, right? That's the SOAR opportunity to get all this incredible intelligence that's been sorted and vetted and made sense of to where it needs to go to the technologies that keep us safe. So with that, I want to pass that over to John. So John, you can talk to us about Simplify and how you guys make sense of all this intel and make it work for people.
Excellent. Thank you, AJ. Really appreciate it. So, Simplify, some of you may be familiar with what we are, who we are, and what we're not, or maybe you're not at all. So what are we? We are a security orchestration, automation, and response tool platform. We're that workbench, right? So when you're in your SOC, and like AJ talked about a moment ago, you're trying to bring all of these tools together to make them work in one location. Possibly in a single pane of glass. We would all like that. We all talk about that, and SIMs often claim to do that to some extent. But obviously, you're not going to get every feature and function within that single pane of glass. But what we do is we offer a robust case management system that has aggregation built in from a proprietary machine learning algorithm. So we're able to kind of lump cases together that really streamline our efforts within a SOC. We offer automation and orchestration, some crisis management, investigation with some collaboration tools to be able to work together on these different issues or alerts or alarms that are coming into your organization. And then we're able to do some reporting, provide that business intelligence. Why are we doing this? What is going on? And what's important about it? Obviously, not only from that tactical level, but from the strategic level, you're going to want to know that as well. So again, like a moment ago, single pane of glass, right? I'm going to break this down into 3 different areas: detect, investigate, and respond. I'm going to talk about each of those individually because there's 3 primary phases, and you can look at this and really break this down into a lot of different other categories. However, in the detection phase, like I said, you'll want to see everything on a single pane of glass. That's extremely difficult, if not impossible, to do. What information do you want? How much information? Obviously, there's a plethora of information out there, but how much can you or your analyst or your team consume? So kind of looking at that from that perspective. And then you have all this information. So what threat assessment do you have? What contextual information is in those alerts that you're getting? Do you have a way of manipulating? Do you have run books of some sort? Do you have playbooks to automate those? So we have to look at those. And then it's in that you have to figure out what's most important, looking at your alert severity. Sometimes it's going to be based on, like you see here on this slide, asset criticality. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's by amount of exposure or type of exposure or an actor or a campaign in some cases, depending on what you're looking at. And then lastly, once you have all this information together, you want to be able to respond in kind. So what does that look like? What are we going to do? Is it a single containment like we're talking about here, or is it something more? Or how many people are impacted? Is it just one single user? Is it one single business unit? Is it the entire organization? And then what is the impact of that? So trying to get all that together and comprehend it and understand it and digest it and then be able to act on it is a pretty daunting task, as you well know. So the next few slides, I'm going to go over those three phases, just in brief with a scenario. So if your IDS or IPS is alerting to C2 communication to a known bad site, right, and I'll get to why we know it's known bad here in a moment, the Simplify SOAR is going to correlate a lot of that information for you from your SIM and from your other entities that you've got within the platform. So we're going to take that information, enrich it, and add it to a playbook. And so in some cases, you might identify, like here on the slide, the host names, the users that are impacted, any suspicious file hashes, again, being reported by anomaly, which is, again, critical to the investigation process. And then you're going to take all that information and put it into a single case, hopefully. And that's not always the case. You may have multiple cases being created at the same time. So if you kind of see over to the right-hand part of the screen there, you're going to see some of the cases that are being generated, phishing, email detector, you see something with COVID, some ransomware, things like that. And then I took a snapshot briefly of some of the entities that may be reported as you're gathering and collecting that information from the platform itself. From there, we want to move into more of an investigation phase. So what we're going to do is trying to generate a playbook if we don't have one already. Back in the days, kind of growing up in the SOC and doing SOC operations, we used to have what's called run books. What happens if I see this, or what do I do if I see that? Who do I escalate to in this case? So what we're able to do here is take that information that you're seeing. So whether we need to isolate something or we need to do more investigation work, you want to detonate something. Again, you're collaborating with peers trying to get information. You'll see towards the right-hand side, you'll see the different alerts and then the insights and who's reporting it, and then a timeline as to which each one of these have been identified. All that is extremely important contextual information to help the investigation process. And through that, what you're then able to do is build a playbook or apply a playbook to a known type of alert, i.e. whether it's phishing or ransomware or whatever the case may be. So then, again, once you do that, you can apply that to the rest of the cases. And then the goal, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, was trying to respond in kind, right? So what are we going to do? Are we going to block malicious information? Are we going to increase or decrease file reputation? Are we just going to open a ticket? Are we going to escalate? Are we going to disable a user? What are the goals here? What do we need to do to either contain or mitigate this alarm or this thing that's going on within our infrastructure? Off to the right, you're going to see some contextual information. I was able to pull from Anomaly on a specific alert that came in. So you can see a ton of information coming that we're able to use to help us make that informed decision. We're going to then take that information and apply it to a playbook. And what's great about the automation within playbooks is you've got all these different pieces or all these different technologies within your SOAR platform that you're able to leverage. And what's great is, especially in a 24/7 operations, you're able to, once you've categorized these alarms and built playbooks for them, it's going to recognize that, and that's part of the machine learning. And when it does that, it will automatically kick off a playbook based on the type of alarm that it sees, which is fantastic because although all these tools are super robust and they offer a lot of different capabilities and functionalities, it's going to take time to process that. Well, what the playbooks do is kick off those processes automatically. And by the time you come in and get in your desk in the morning, if something happened overnight, a lot of that legwork is already done for you. So again, kind of my case in point to the screenshots off to the right-hand side of your screen that you see now, a few different processes have already taken place. You'll see the anomaly get threat info towards the bottom there. And if you can see on your screen, you'll see the little anomaly A up there. You know, I'm already done that information. So I can go back to anomaly, or if, let's say, I did not have a SOAR, I can work in anomaly, of course, and I can go out and do all that investigation work. And they have an internal investigation tool, which is fantastic. But again, it's going to take me time to do that. And as we all know, time is money, right? So if we can automate a lot of those processes and get it done beforehand, it makes our job a whole lot easier. In addition, now any time that we see this type of case, and again, let's say this one is a phishing email, as an example, I'm going to run the same process every single time, regardless of who gets it, which analyst sees it, where the email or the phishing attempt took place, or how many people it impacted. So every time it's a repeatable, measurable process, I'm running on the same type of file or same type of alert that I see each time. Again, just streamlining our efforts within the SOC and the SOC operations. So now that we've executed our tasks, right? What are we going to do with it to remediate it, to contain it, and so on and so forth? You know, being able to apply that to your organization and how you're going to manage that is important. So there are multiple options out there to do that, right? You've got the diamond model, the sticks model, the kill chain model, and the attack threat model. So we integrate with all of these, right? We can work with your teams, your SOC teams, to help figure these things out and develop a strategy within your SOC to streamline your SOC operations. In some cases, you're going to notice that you're going to use more than one methodology here. In some cases, you know, and I've read this multiple times, you know, people ask, well, which better? Is it diamond? Is it kill chain? You know, what's going on? Which one should I use? Well, oftentimes you really want to use both, right? So, and this allows you to figure that out, right? So the diamond model, as an example, is going to help you develop the understanding on how to build or organize around how to execute against the kill chain methodology. You know, it's not going to necessarily solve the problem, but it's going to help you or give you a foundation on how to figure that part out. So again, being able to apply that and be able to pull or use this information to stay organized within your organization is absolutely critical. So I hope you've enjoyed the presentation so far. Again, this is John Kitchen from Simplify. I want to thank you for your time. And AJ Nash, always a pleasure working with you, my friend. I look forward to the next time. And I think, Dan, are we going to open up to some Q&A now?
Yeah. Thanks, John. Thanks, AJ. A couple of questions did come in, so we got about 5 minutes. So let's try to hit those up. This was a bit of a broad one. How do I choose the right tools? I guess I'll add on that a bit because I was thinking about it. Obviously, Anomaly can help you collect, analyze threat intelligence, as AJ told us about. Simplify. John told us about how the SOAR platform can help you apply, automate intelligence to alerts and investigations. So both of those certainly, John and AJ, go a long way to help you build your threat intelligence program. But I guess we probably have audience members of all different sizes, verticals, threat landscapes, right? So how do you make sure you're choosing the right tools for your environment specifically? Is that something, does that make sense? Is that something you guys can answer?
Yeah, I think I can jump in on that one. And then John, you can back me up on this. I know you've been around a long time. You've seen a lot, right? But yeah, I think it goes back to part of the earlier discussion about planning and direction, right? When you're building out your program, to make sure we get the right vendors and we get the right accesses and the right tools. First, we have to take time to understand who we're supporting and why. So I'm a big advocate for identifying our stakeholders within the company. Generally, it should go well beyond just the SOC. You know, most organizations build these programs and they help the blue team get better, or maybe the blue team and the red team, they don't go beyond that. But if we identify our stakeholders and our corporate needs and we build out some intelligence requirements off of that, puts us in a better position to select vendors who are going to help us the most. You know, for instance, really simple, you know, I'm in the financial space. I protect money. I'm going to be very interested in cybercrime, I would think. If I start digging in and finding out what my company cares about, there's some vendors who specifically focus on that. So I'd want to integrate with those vendors and bring in that data. You know, as far as technologies, you know, I want technologies that make my life easier and work. You know, a lot of threat platforms out there. I'm sure there's some SOARs as well, but I happen to have a real strong affinity for for ourselves at Anomaly, obviously for Simplify, because the products work. You know, and that's what you can figure out through POCs and certainly discussions with peers is what have other people successfully brought in, you know, what are people I trust, and what can I POC and find out for myself works really well. And between those two things, I think people are in a position to really start selecting the right vendors and the right tools and the right people with the right mindset to work with them and build. Like this is a journey, right? Nobody comes in and just buys one stuff, slaps it together, and has a program. So you want to work with people you trust that can work with you on the path. What do you think, John?
AJ, I think you really hit it on the head. You know, stakeholders is a key piece to this, and obviously interoperability is extremely important. Making sure that products will talk and work with one another, and that's one of the things that I know both Anomaly and of course I hear us at Simplify. One thing that we are very proud of is we are very vendor agnostic. You know, we're the number one solely owned SOAR out there in the world that is agnostic to any other product. So we're not owned by anybody, and that's great. So it just demonstrates that we're willing to work with just about anybody to make your solution work. And having that, being able to do that, whether it's I talk about a security ecosystem, and making sure that all those different entities, if you will, i.e. products, work together within that ecosystem. Otherwise, you're going to have a gap. And again, that's where you expose yourself, and that's not where you want to be. So again, getting that proven, having that experience or working with others, and having your senior leadership understand or have worked with other people who know of other products that have worked together well, that's going to go a long way.
Yeah, and John, if the tools can work for you, it will go a long way, especially to help overcome, because a lot of these organizations are suffering with in-house skill shortages, so they really need to turn to outside folks for help. All right, let's finish up here with a final question that we got in, which is how long until I see value, right? Everyone wants to get their bang for their buck as quickly as possible. I would imagine, and John, I'll stick with you first, then we'll flip to AJ. There's so much volume of data that can come from threat intelligence sources and all that. So I'm wondering how soon can you work your way through all this and see value?
So that's a really great question, but it's an extremely difficult question to answer because no two organizations are identical. And I run into that a lot, and I have, and I'm sure AJ has over the years as well. Great question. When am I going to see that value? Well, some will see it immediately. If I'm able to automate some processes and knock off time that your analysts are spending or spinning their wheels on something, you'll see that instantaneously. More long term, right? So if I'm starting to build out the SOC or the operationability of the SOC, it's going to take time. You're not going to see that tomorrow necessarily. It may take you 30, 60, 90, 180 days, even a year in some cases. So it really just depends on what those goals are. So establishing requirements up front, what you're looking for, what is that desired outcome is paramount. You have to do that, and then you can work towards that goal. So again, you can have some very tactical goals and then some more strategic goals to realize that benefit.
Yeah.
AJ, your thoughts, 30 seconds?
Absolutely. I think John makes a great point. There's certainly variance. I can say that one of the advantages of platforms like ours being SaaS is you really cut down your time to install, right? So, in the past when I've done this, the bigger obstacle really has just been procurement. You get me through procurement, you get me in the door. We can get platforms set up very quickly. And as John said, you'll see immediate value. It just is value that also grows over time. So right away, I think there's things that get done in the first 2-3 weeks that you're on and set up where you're going to see value. And then you build out that map and that of ideas and that roadmap of where you want to go. And as you bring more things in and build more processes, you'll build more value over the course of that first 3, 6, 9, 12 months. But I think it's instant value and then a growing amount of it as you go forward. Just get through procurement, and we work hard to help people with that part too.
Great. Okay. All right. Let's conclude there. I do want to mention to everyone a quick plug for our community edition, which recently went live. You could check out simplify.co/community. Download our community edition. Play around with SOAR. Access platform features, hit the ground running with ready-to-run use cases, ingest alerts, download integrations. You could do a heck of a lot with it. So check out our community edition, simplify.co/community. And I want to thank both of our speakers today, AJ Nash, Director of Cyber Intelligence Strategy at Anomaly. AJ, thank you. And John, Director of Sales Engineering at Simplify. Both of you, thank you. And thanks to everyone for joining us.